A person's blood type is a genetic trait related to red blood cells. The blood type actually depends on the proteins on their surface. These proteins are called agglutinogens. There are 3 types of agglutinogens: agglutinogen A, represented by a red triangle, agglutinogen B, represented by a blue circle, and Rh agglutinogen, also called rhesus factor, or simply Rh factor, represented by a black rectangle. The presence or absence of these proteins is used to identify a person's blood type. If a person has all 3 of the agglutinogens, agglutinogen A, B, and rhesus factor on their red blood cells, their blood type is AB positive. If agglutinogens A and B are present, but not the rhesus factor, the person's blood type is AB negative. This means that it's the rhesus factor that determines whether the blood type is positive or negative. There is no such thing as a negative rhesus factor. People with a negative blood type simply do not have the rhesus factor on their red blood cells. If a person has both agglutinogens, A and rhesus factor on their red blood cells, their blood type is A positive. When only agglutinogen A is present, their blood type is A negative. Similarly, if a person has both agglutinogens B and rhesus factor on red blood cells, their blood type is B positive. If only agglutinogen B is present, their blood type is B negative. If a person has only the rhesus factor on their red blood cells, their blood type is O positive. When no agglutinogen is present, the person has the O negative blood type. A total of 8 blood types are possible based on the agglutinogens A, B, and the rhesus factor: AB positive, AB negative, A positive, A negative, B positive, B negative, O positive, O negative. Not all blood types are compatible with each other. For example, a person with type A blood cannot receive blood from a person with type B blood. What causes this incompatibility? It's the agglutinins. An agglutinin is an antibody in the blood plasma that attacks red blood cells carrying a specific agglutinogen. There are 3 types of agglutinins, each attacking a specific agglutinogen: anti-A agglutinin or agglutinin A, anti-B agglutinin or agglutinin B, anti-Rh agglutinin or agglutinin Rh. Agglutinins are represented by shapes complementary to their corresponding agglutinogen. When an agglutinin attacks an agglutinogen, an immune reaction occurs. This reaction can cause chills, fevers, chest and back pain. In severe cases, the kidneys can be affected, and the reaction can even result in death. Anti-A agglutinins attack red blood cells that carry agglutinogen A. Anti-B agglutinins attack red blood cells that carry agglutinogen B. Anti-Rh agglutinin attacks red blood cells that carry the rhesus factor. Depending on the blood type, a person can have certain agglutinins or not. For example, someone who has blood type A negative does not have agglutinogens B and Rh on their red blood cells. This means they have anti-B and anti-Rh agglutinins in their plasma. These would attack any red blood cells carrying the B or Rh agglutinogen. The person does not have anti-A agglutinin in their blood plasma. Otherwise, it would attack their own red blood cells. If someone with type A negative blood was given B negative blood, the anti-B agglutinins would destroy the incoming B negative red blood cells. By knowing the blood type of 2 individuals, we can determine their compatibility for blood transfusion. Here is an example with a recipient who has the blood type B positive. Their agglutinogens are B and rhesus factor. We deduce that their plasma has only anti-A agglutinins. If red blood cells carrying agglutinogen A are introduced into the body of someone with type B positive blood, the anti-A agglutinins in their plasma will bind and cause the foreign red blood cells to agglutinate. So people with types A negative, A positive, AB negative, and AB positive cannot be donors for a person with B positive blood type. People who are B negative, B positive, O negative, and O positive can give blood to a person with type B positive with no problem. Here's another example with a recipient who is AB positive. This person's agglutinogens are A, B, and the rhesus factor. Since their red blood cells have all the agglutinogens, their plasma has no agglutinin. This means that all blood types can give blood to a person with type AB positive. This is why they are called the universal recipients. Here is a final example with a recipient who has type O negative blood. Since this person's red blood cells have no agglutinogens, their plasma has all three agglutinins, anti-A, anti-B, and anti-RH. For potential donors, we have to rule out types with agglutinogen A, agglutinogen B, and rhesus factor. That leaves only O negative. This means that people with type O negative can only receive blood from another person with type O negative. However, people with type O negative can give blood to all other blood types due to the absence of agglutinogens. This is why type O negative is called the universal donor. Here is a table summarizing all possible donor and recipient matches. When patients are scheduled for a red blood cell transfusion, they will be given blood cells that are of the same type as their own. For example, an A positive patient will be given A positive blood. However, in an emergency situation, O negative blood could be given since it's compatible for everyone. Note that AB positive people can receive blood of all types. Since a person's blood type is a genetic trait, their distribution in the population varies. Here is the distribution of blood types within the Quebec population. Do you know your blood type?